Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Tonight we're going to talk about the 2026 Ram 1500 Warlock. Now, if you're not familiar with the Warlock, we're going to talk a lot about it. We're going to talk about the modern day version of it, but the nameplate has been around for a long time. It's been around since the 70s. Back in the 70s, it was part of Dodge's adult toy kind of lineup, which was basically special edition models with like different graphics packages and stuff like that. And it kind of played a little bit of a tribute to the Little Red Express. So basically, instead of having the chrome stacks that were kind of like a semi-truck, it was just basically a Little Red Express without the graphics and without the stacks. But it was super popular back then. So much so that when we were at the 2019 Canadian International Auto Show in Toronto, Ram actually pulled the covers off of it. Off of the modern day one, I should say. So what we got for 2019 was a Ram 1500 Classic, so the 4th generation DS trucks, but we got the body style of the Rebel that was the outgoing truck, and what they did was they put 20-inch wheels on it with street tires instead of having the off-road tires like the Rebel, and they based it on the Tradesman. So inside, you got basic necessities, but it was a very budget-friendly truck, and little did we know that this truck would kind of blow up. It would be a huge thing for Ram. And the Warlock became one of the most popular packages in all of the Ram lineup, which was kind of funny because you'd think like people would want to go to the 5th gen trucks, but with the 4th gen DS truck, it was very budget friendly. So if you had bad credit or if you just simply didn't want to pay, a huge amount of money for one of these newer trucks, the DS truck still was very stylish, offered the cheapest way to get into a V8 full-size pickup. And it was just popular because everybody did like the older generation Rebel. So much so that people started complaining the year after, like, hey, they should put off-road tires. They should do this and this and this to it. So Ram was listening. So back in 2021, in September of 2020, we broke this news that the 2021 Ram 1500 Classic Warlock was going to get an all-terrain package. And this is where the Warlock kind of genre changes for the modern day Warlock pickup. So again, you got tow hooks, you got basically 18-inch wheels from the Rebel, but instead of having the Goodyear tires, they were Yokohamas. And it kind of made the truck more off-road like, obviously like a replacement for the Rebel, a more budget-friendly Rebel. So a lot of people like this truck, like with the all-terrain package, and in 2023, even though the Ram 1500 Classic Warlock was still going on, Ram quietly released this truck. Now, this is kind of funny because at the time, they didn't send out a press release at all. I actually found out about this because these were showing up on dealer lots. So the Warlock name came to the 5th generation truck back at very late in 2023. And we started seeing that this was based on the Tradesman. However, it was, instead of being like it was like street tires and stuff, this was basically a budget-friendly Rebel. So it was about $10,000-$12,000 less than the Rebel was at the time, but basically based on the Tradesman. So what they did was they gave this truck some options that were very popular. So you got like the 7-inch, digital cluster in the middle. You did get like, all the underpinnings that were under the Rebel. So you got a 1-inch suspension lift. You got the Goodyear Wrangler tires. You got 18-inch wheels, tow hooks, all that stuff. But you could get it with the Pentastar V6 or the Hemi V8, just like the classic model. So again, this was very quietly rolled out in 2023, and then at the end of during 2024, they said, hey, it's coming back. So we actually got this truck back in 2024 as well. So I did this article back in December of 2023 because we knew the Hemi was coming to an end. And I said, we're embracing the Hemi era, the Ram 1500 Tradesman Warlock 4x4. So again, this was a great package, budget-friendly package. Again, about $10,000 under the price of the Rebel. It seemed to get more and more popular as time went on. But at that point, we were getting rid of the Hemi. Fast forward to 2025, we got an updated Ram 1500. Now, you can see here on the page, the Hemi was gone. So what Ram did was they introduced a truck that was about $55,000. And it basically had the same suspension as the Rebel, but you couldn't get a Pentastar V6 or a Hemi V8 anymore. Instead, standard engine was the new twin-turbo 3-liter Hurricane inline-six standard output motor with 420 horsepower and 469 pound-feet of torque. However, this was like almost the cheapest version to get into that engine because it's based on the Tradesman. So it started out at about $55,000. And then when Tim Kuniskis came back, he basically said, hey, I want to have a lineup of $50,000 trucks. So then we started seeing incentives put on this truck to the point where it got right down exactly at $50,000. So compared to other Rams, this was by far the cheapest version to get into a Hurricane high output truck. And again, it was a budget friendly Rebel. So it's even more than $10,000 less with the incentives. So again, this truck keeps growing in popularity as it's going on. But a lot of people said, hey, we want, more options and powertrains. We'd like even a cheaper truck. With that being said, a few months ago, back in March, I was out spy shooting near the Chrysler Technical Center, and I ended up seeing this. This was a Ram 1500 Warlock, but it has eTorque on it. And at the time, we knew that the Hemi was probably coming back, but the Pentastar engine has eTorque. And the one thing that really was a dead giveaway was the one mounted side exhaust out the back. And that is because the Pentastar only has a single exhaust, where the Hemi models would have dual. So it was a dead giveaway that obviously they're going to build a V6, Pentastar V6 eTorque powered Warlock for 2026. Now, as we're gearing up for 2026, we were invited to CTC, the Chrysler Tech Center, this past week to see the unveiling for the Hemi V8, to be basically returning to the Ram 1500. And at that time, we were confirmed that the Warlock will indeed get the Pentastar V6, as well as a Hemi option for 2026. So now there's going to be 3 options going into 2026, and it makes the package even more appealing to people. So if you don't need the high horsepower standard output engine, or you don't want the Hemi, you can go to a Pentastar V6. If you don't want the standard output engine, you can go to a Hemi. But what we've been hearing, though, is a lot of people have been complaining about, hey, the Hemi is too expensive. They're making it's not the standard engine anymore. And Tim Kuniskis doesn't want it as a standard engine. He told us that. It's not the standard engine. He wants the Hemi to be optional because he wants the focus to be on either basically the Pentastar, or in this case, the Hurricane engines. So for 2026, a lot of people have been saying, hey, you have to basically get the upgrade to the Hurricane, and then you had to upgrade again to the Hemi, and it's really pricey. So the funny thing is if you look at what Tim has done, Tim has basically made the Hurricane engine even cheaper for 2026. So instead of being $2,695 option, and now it's $1,695 option. And then if you look at basically what the Hemi cost, the Hemi is an additional $1,200 on top of that $1,695. So if you're ultimately looking at how much the Hemi will actually cost you, it's $2,895. So $2,895 for if you're wanting to get this engine in a Warlock. Now, a lot of people have been complaining about that, like saying, oh, you're going to pay $3,000 for a Hemi. That's crazy. However, if you go back to my article, back from the 2024 models, okay, the Warlock then, I did an article on it, and I talked about the pricing. And the pricing for the 2024 Ram 1500 Tradesman Warlock started at a US MSRP of $49,105. And that included the almost $2,000 for destination. So, again, that is the standard Warlock at the time in 2024. Now the truck's about, $50,000, but we should see it drop a little bit maybe with the Pentastar V6. We don't know pricing just yet on the 2026 trucks, but hopefully it stays about the same. However, at that time, the Pentastar was standard. If you wanted a Hemi back in 2024 in the Warlock, it was going to set you back $3,045. $3,045. So while people are complaining about the Hemi being, expensive for 2026, it's actually cheaper than it was in 2024. And now you're getting standard, the Mopar catback exhaust from the Rebel GT on each Hemi. So it sounds even better. So a lot of people have been complaining about prices, but it sounds like the Hemi is still a deal compared to what it was even in 2024. So you're paying a few $100s less than what you are, even though you have to upgrade basically from the standard output engine. So that should be some news that people should be talking about. But yes, the truck, the actual upgrade to the Hemi in the Warlock will be cheaper. So basically what they did is they're offering more choices than ever before for the Warlock. So again, it just depends on what you want. If you want that Hemi V8 sound, yeah, you can pay for the Hemi V8 sound. If you want the standard output, Hurricane engine with 420 horsepower and more fuel efficiency, you can get that. If you just want to pay the standard Pentastar V6 and you don't need all that towing power in that, you can opt for it. So there are more options than ever. And again, we don't know pricing just yet. Ram hasn't released pricing for the 2026 trucks just yet, other than the Express. So we're hoping to hear that soon. But keep that in mind. So if you're looking for an alternative to the Rebel, you simply can't afford the Rebel, there is a lot of options going into 2026 for the Warlock. And again, the Warlock is probably one of the best packages for the Ram 1500. Again, you're looking at a Tradesman model, but you get a little more upgrades than the most Tradesman models. You get the digital clusters, you get, you get rear sliding window. You still have a bench seat up front, which is really cool because if you want to take 6 passengers in the truck, you can. So basically there's room for 6. There's just a lot of positives about this truck. To me, this has been my favorite version of the Ram 1500 going in from 2025. And now for 2026, it probably will be still my favorite version of the Ram 1500 just because it's more budget friendly, more down to earth, more back to basics of being a pickup truck. And now you're going to have more choices than ever for engines. So with that in mind, make sure to stay tuned to Mopar Insiders. Make sure to stay tuned to 5th Gen Rams. When the prices leak out for the 2026 trucks, we'll be sure to post them on here. And again, we're probably going to be talking about this Warlock for quite a long time because obviously this truck just keeps getting more and more popular on the DT trucks. So with that being said, have a good weekend, and I'll see you in the next video.